What's going on, everybody? Welcome into a brand new episode of the Chasing the Pack podcast. I'm your host, Chase Lacombe, and thank you so much for joining us today. If you haven't already, I encourage you to hit the like button on this video. Please hit subscribe to the channel. We're a brand new channel, and it really does help us grow a ton. Thanks so much for being here, and I hope you enjoyed your Packers 2025 regular NFL season. It is all gone. We are all out of regular season games. How quickly the season actually moves it's just astonishing to me every single year. I can't believe it's preseason. We're in OTAs, we're in mini camps, and then all of a sudden we're in week one, and you blink, and all of a sudden we're here at the end of week 18, and there are no more NFL games left to watch in the regular season. We have some great postseason football coming up on either side of the conferences, so this is going to be really, really, really fun off season, I think, for anyone who's a football fan to sit back and watch. But the NFL season went down really to the very last second, the last play of the last two teams in the regular season. Oh my gosh, how fun that was to watch. The Pittsburgh Steelers. I thought that was the coolest thing for Aaron Rodgers. And I know he's not a Green Bay Packer anymore, but he's arguably one of the greatest Green Bay Packers who will ever wear the green and gold. Not arguably. He is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, who will ever, wear the green and gold. And the fact that he is still out here and he still has a little bit of magic just left in those fingertips or just left in him. There's just a little bit of magic left in the bottom of the jar. If you scrape it long enough, you can get just a little bit more out of it. And honestly, I think we were all sitting there about to watch Aaron Rodgers nod and ride off into the sunset. All they had to do, all Baltimore had to do was make the last field goal. A chip shot field goal for 3 and win it all, send Aaron Rodgers into retirement, send the Pittsburgh Steelers, home for the playoffs. And instead it goes wide right. Aaron stays in the dance a little longer. Pittsburgh wins the North. Aaron Rodgers becomes king of a North division for one more time. And if you can't be romantic about football, then, how can you not? How can you not just be romantic about football at this point? It's beautiful to watch. You never know. You really never quite know how these games are going to go. Obviously, down to the last second of the last play of the last game of the year. And I think at that point, if you had said, all right, the contents of your bank account right now, for, what was it, a 28 yarder, something, I forget, I don't know, but it was short. That was a chip shot, almost gimme field goal, for any kicker in the league, especially this deep. And, Baltimore has kicked extremely well. And it seemed like Baltimore really had it all in their hand right there in that second. And I think I don't think you needed to know too much about football, and you probably would have taken that bet. And that was a pretty sure bet. And I think almost all of us would have lost the chips on the table that we put out there. Thankfully, I'm not a betting man. But yeah, Baltimore really had it all in their hand, and they gifted one to Pittsburgh, and their season continues. Rodgers' career continues, at least for one more game. But God, what just really an exciting game to watch, from top to bottom. What a wonderful season of football from all these other teams that, that aren't going to be in the dance anymore. Derrick Henry put on a show 2 weeks ago, much to our dismay, but a show nonetheless. And, a performance that, it went down in, on some of the first pages of history, in football during that game, sadly. But Derrick Henry and some of these other people, and Aaron Rodgers and the Justin Jeffersons and all of these are generational talents. And while they are here to watch, even at times when it goes, it is all against your team, and those statistics are, their highlight stat lines, and it is a scene that will forever live in infamy in your mind, or, on highlight reels for decades to come, that every time it shows it, your heart cringes because where you were when you saw it happen live, and you remember the heartache, and you still feel it every time that you see those replays and read those stats going, I remember that game, but greatness knows greatness. And, the Green Bay Packers have been on either side of a lot of history in football, for better or for worse. But, if there's any consolation, Baltimore is no longer, has any hopes left of the 2025 NFL season, yet the Green Bay Packers do. And now we're on to the Packers' final regular season matchup with against the Minnesota Vikings. The Packers just played one of the absolute ugliest games that I've ever seen come from this team. And we all had to just sit there and watch it and eat it. And we knew what it was going to be. We knew how it was going to feel. We knew what it was going to look like going into this game. And it was not fun. It was not fun to watch. I think, we all have some glimmer of hope in the back of our mind that this team is, with all of the backups and the backup to the backup to the backup, sir, that they're just going to find a way to come out there and look like some kind of championship caliber team like you just never saw coming. It would just be the most amazing, sensational, out of left field kind of day. But that is not reality. that is not the simulation that we currently live in. So, no, it really was just one of the ugliest games that I think any of us have ever really had to sit there and watch. But I don't think that the Packers were ever trying to be in a football game. The game was really, a preseason game, an exhibition match. It was a necessary task in order to get to the postseason and to get to either Chicago or Philadelphia. Will be Chicago, spoiler alert, in case we haven't gotten to that part of the episode. If you're getting this as your breaking news and you've been living under a rock for the last, 18 hours after the game has ended. But yeah, it was just basically a preseason game, and the only goal was to come out of here as healthy as possible. Still a few blips on that radar, but ultimately I think it is about as good as you can hope on the injury front, and for all intents and purposes. But the roster for this team right now, I've never seen a roster get overhauled so deeply, so late in a season as this, with a team that is still, with aspirations and, a ticket into the playoffs. This is usually what you see from a rebuilding team at this point. And, somebody who's just kind of, putting all the pieces back together and, starting to try for next year. And you're thinking about the draft and the off season and free agency and, whatever you can do, to bolster your team and rebuild it in the off season. And whenever I've never seen so many roster moves, to an active roster 1 week before a playoff game and a chance to make a run. It's always a chance. But I think it's safe to say that the Clayton Tune era in Green Bay has thankfully come to a close. That experiment likely laid to rest, hopefully, for all time now. But it took him, about one time throwing the ball, I think, before we all knew that he was not the future of even the backup quarterback position here in Titletown. It's just, yeah. Anyway, Yeah, I had my mind made up pretty well, or pretty quickly. He just didn't look ready or prepared to play football in the NFL, really in any real or meaningful way. I mean, thankfully he stayed healthy, and we really didn't need to see, Jordan Love handing off balls all second half of this game. And thankfully we didn't have to see Malik Willis come in here. Hopefully we don't ever have to see him again out, on the field again, unless it's maybe out there just to, get a snap while you're still attached to the roster, while Green Bay is, 2 snaps away from winning, a 14th all-time championship. It would just be great if he could go out there, get 1-0 down. I want Jordan Love to take the final one, but I would take that being his last one, and they kind of hug it out on the sidelines, hold up the Lombardi together, and that's a different simulation. I don't really believe we're in a simulation. I'm just being funny and facetious. But anyway. If I had to name one player this game, though, I would put it on Daniel Whelan. There may have been one other. There was one other player, and his name escapes me. I didn't write it down, but that's going to annoy me. But yeah, Daniel Whelan. I feel like, man, Green Bay found a punter finally, and he really did a bang up job. I really hope that Green Bay doesn't need to do a lot of punting from here on out. But if Green Bay ends up in a game that it's a battle for field position, somewhere down the line here in the playoffs, but Green Bay having someone like him can really be the difference maker in a game like that. If field position and yards are coming at a premium, and it seems to be a battle of defenses and potentially, a couple, a field goal one way or the other can really swing it. Javon Bullard was the name. He and Bo Melton both suffered, it seems like, some knee injuries in this game. Seems like Bullard is going to be just fine. He was talking with some players, some other people, coach, and everybody. So it seems like Javon's going to be good. Bo Melton, I do not know. That would be a real bad person to lose, on special teams, on offense. He's your sixth wide receiver. He's depth at cornerback right now. He was your third corner, until Green Bay started, pulling the pin on a lot of different hand grenades around the NFL and bringing people into, back into Green Bay here in the last week or so to bolster up this roster, specifically at corner. But yeah, you don't want to lose, you don't want to lose Bo. He's been a good gunner on special teams. So, and yeah, he's been a good wideout too. Yeah. He's one of those all around serviceable, players for Green Bay, and Green Bay we don't have enough players left to sacrifice and lose any other players. Anyways, into the next bit of news. The Bears proved that they still suck. Yeah. They did everything that they could to piss away the 2 seed and played a pretty ugly game against Detroit. This team has struggled late in the season to maintain its foot on the gas and stay consistently competitive. And Green Bay is going to definitely have to take advantage of that in this matchup. They really left it all up to Philly to take and to take that 2 seed. And everyone fully expected Philly to really get in there and get that win against a struggling Commanders team that was putting in their third string quarterback. But they couldn't get it done. And that's the reality in the NFL. Even in the last week of the season, you think you're a shoo-in. You think it is all yours. Ask the Seahawks, and Pete Carroll, and ask Marshawn Lynch, and Russell Wilson. Ask them if they, with 1 yard to go for a Super Bowl, they got it in their hand, right? Yeah, not quite. So until you do, you really, really don't. But I don't know. I think this game, I think this scenario versus the Bears and the Packers, I think this is the scenario that we all wanted to see probably from both of these franchises. And fan bases for the most part, I would probably guess at least 90% of people, if not more, would like to face him. Now, if you're asked, would you like to lose against if that would be the team that would shut you out? I would say 100% of Bears fans do not want to lose in the playoffs to the Packers, and 100% of Packers fans do not want to lose to the Chicago Bears in the playoffs, and that's how our season ends. Don't want to lose the division and your playoff hopes and the entire season at the hand of Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. I don't want to do that. That is not how I want to go out here. But this is a really good rivalry feel between both of these teams going into this game. I feel like both of these fan bases are really behind these teams. I really wish that Green Bay had more of its weapons available. Tucker Kraft, all of the Micah Parsons, the Quays, all of the people. I really wish all of these players could be healthy for both of these teams. But this is going to be a great rivalry going into this game. Only the third all-time meeting ever in the postseason between the two teams who have met more than any two other teams in the entire NFL, and we've only ever played two games in 105, 107 years or something like that. I don't know. It's over 100 years, but so the Packers and Bears are 1-1 all time. They're tied up. The Bears won in 1949, the Western Division playoff, 33-14, played at Wrigley Field. The Bears came away with the win. The Packers won, obviously in our lifetime memory, in the 2010 NFC Championship game in a 21-14 victory in Soldier Field. So both of the games that, all three now postseason games versus Chicago will have been played on Chicago's turf, on their field in Chicago. It was almost not to be this season. Packers almost had one, almost hosted one for the Bears for the first time, but alas, it wasn't to be. So I guess if we're just going to seesaw back and forth, then, actually, no, never mind. I don't want to seesaw back and forth. That would be, scratch that. But anyway, no, I feel like Green Bay's got a great chance going into this game. Really, I think any team right now, if you've punched your ticket to the playoffs, I think you've got a great chance. I think a lot of it's going to come down to advantageous matchups and just the roll of the seeding dice and just how it all, links up, for each of these teams moving forward. We know how it shakes out, at least in the Wildcard Weekend. So I think that Green Bay probably rolled the best dice. It rolled the best number it possibly could have, and rolled a 2 as a 7. So that was really good for Green Bay, I think, to draw Chicago instead of Philly, and it for a real moment. It really, really looked like it was going to be, Green Bay versus Philly. And I don't think any of us wanted to see that game. And I was almost reserved to having to believe that was about to actually happen, that the Bears literally sucked that much and literally just threw it away, pissed it away right there at the very end of their season when they had it all in their hands. And just like they do, just like they're known to do. And I tell you what, now that was the greatest scenario that I could have thought of, for the Bears to lose and then it come down to a struggling Philly team to put it away and it actually go into Chicago for for Green Bay. That was harder to say than it should have been. But yeah, Green Bay really got away with one there. And I think this is going to be about the best advantageous matchup that Green Bay could have had coming out as the 7th seed. Because I think that, for about 118 of the 120 minutes of these two games that Green Bay has played Chicago this year, they've led. And, if it hasn't been for about 2 minutes in 8 quarters of football, Green Bay would have been able to win, both of these games this season, and we would be sitting as the 2 seed hosting the Chicago Bears this weekend in Lambeau. But alas, that's not the reality we live in. So I don't know. I really feel like Green Bay does have a good chance to win this game ultimately. But speaking of our chances to win, Green Bay currently is a 1.5 point favorite. The last time that I checked. Now I've seen several different sites that say that Chicago's a 1.5 favorite or Green Bay is a 1.5 favorite. It's I don't know. It just depends on who you follow, who you watch, who you pay attention to, and who I guess you bet with ultimately, or who you trust. But no matter which way you try and cut it, slice it, dice it, peel it, it's going to be essentially an even matched game going into this weekend. I think it's going to be split right down the middle, and this game is going to be one for all the bragging rights in the NFC North for a long time to come. This is a game that should have been played at Lambeau, should have been a home game, but Jordan should have won his first division this year as well. Maybe it was, it was totally to do it with totally to do with the health of this team. But, there were some games there, easy games to win, the Carolina game, the Cleveland game, Dallas was a winnable game. Yeah, there were a lot of opportunities for Green Bay to put this, we had the 1 seed, in hand for a little while. That was very much in the cards. So there were a lot of little mistakes from this team all year, but ultimately we're in the dance and we can only play the opponent in front of us. And right now I think Green Bay drew, its best possible opponent. So maybe this is the easiest and only path to a Super Bowl that Green Bay could have possibly had, was either getting the 2 or the 7. I think it would have been better to get the 2 ultimately and be playing these games inside the, the warm, frozen confines of Lambeau Field. But we'll be back there next year. But the Packers have an opportunity to really go out there to Chicago, rewind the clock, on this game and the last few weeks, and really show why that they should have won that game, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And it's all in their hands. I expect a very run heavy game plan for Chicago in this one, and really any other team that Green Bay is gonna potentially face throughout the rest of this postseason. I think the way that Derrick Henry and the Ravens really gashed us 2 weeks ago, it really set a blueprint for other teams to really see how to beat Green Bay. And Chicago ran the ball. Last time they really did. They ran it pretty well. I think that they were trying to be more balanced, on offense and really give, Caleb some passing time, and they wanted to get a little cute, with the ball on some of the plays like that. And I think ultimately that's, kind of what kept Green Bay in the game more. But I think that Chicago is going to stay more committed to the run this time, and they're really going to test Green Bay's run defense early and likely often. Caleb's ability to scramble and avoid sacks is obviously once again going to be tested by Green Bay. I don't think that there's a lot of opportunity or chances that Green Bay is going to have to be able to get home and bring Caleb down. I think we might get lucky on one. It ain't going to come from Rashawn, but So maybe, I don't know, maybe a Colin Oliver, mini Micah out there. We'll see. We'll see what happens, but yeah, this is a game to where you can't leave any of your tricks in the bag. You've got to put you have to play every card that you have, in your hand in this game. So otherwise you go home and last thing you want to do is be like, well, sure am glad I kept that ace up my sleeve. I can use it next year, I guess. I'll surprise everybody. Should have put it in this year. But yeah, containment to the pocket, whether you get home or not, likely not, because he's so elusive with his feet anyway. But you just keep him in there and allow your defense downfield to go in there, try and make a play, force him to throw, force him to get rid of it, force the Bears into third and long scenarios, force them into obvious passing situations, and try and make the Bears as one-dimensional as you possibly can. And I think that's about the best thing that you can do to hope for with Caleb Williams. Just try and keep him contained, and try and close that pocket, as quickly as can, and hopefully just kind of get him off his edge just a little bit, rock him just enough to get him a little unbalanced and just start having to make desperation throws. Speaking of Caleb making desperation throws, one of my other big keys for this game is winning the turnover battle. How about that transition? Chicago's really been a magnet for the football this season, and I don't understand why. I don't know why they're suddenly Magneto from the X-Men with the football this season. But at some point, the magic in the jar has got to run empty, right? For Chicago. Like, they cannot just keep being magnetized that much to the football. And almost all of their games this season have been won on, a single possession, point differential. It's usually a one-score game, and it usually comes down to one play, one turnover one way or the other that, has decided a lot of Chicago's games this year. And I think if you can be on the right side of that, then you have more than a punter's chance of hoping to come out of Chicago with a victory if you're Green Bay. Green Bay has not had the turnover success that they had a season ago. Xavier McKinney has not been the same ball hawk for them. They've just not been able to find a way to really been able to come down with the football. They've gotten opportunities all season. There have been balls that have bounced off their hands all year long, and they have just not been able to come down and with a completed interception. It's baffling to me how Green Bay can go all season long and hardly get a single interception. Now, the Jets actually did. Jets actually succeeded in that goal. Didn't have a single interception on the entire season, becoming the first team in NFL history since they started keeping track of that in 1933 or 34, whatever it was. So, congrats to the Jets for being the most Jets, or that being the most Jets stat ever. I mean, I don't know. Green Bay finally got one. But last week, like almost garbage time on like a weird, slipped, forced fumble. He gets up. I think he thought he was touched already. He figured like a Green Bay defender probably, and then he just gets, hit. The ball comes out. That was a great hit, by the way, but they're just going to have to find a way to keep, a hold of the ball whenever it comes their way. And honestly, it's come their way. I imagine Caleb is going to put one or two in harm's way, or, a tip up, pass, something. But I would expect Green Bay to have a few opportunities in this game. We usually get one or two, for a turnover, and that can be the very thing to tilt this game for Green Bay and put a dagger into the Bears 2025 season. Anyway, This game's going to be played on Saturday, 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 Eastern, in Chicago at Soldier Field. The broadcast for this one's going to be on Amazon Prime, so don't cancel your Christmas your Christmas Amazon Prime subscription yet. Let the wife keep it for another month, maybe through February. We might be needing that, moving forward. Just want to take a quick look around the rest of the NFL real fast. After the regular season finale, Seattle takes the 1 seed, gets the bye, gets home field advantage throughout the rest of the playoffs. The Bears take the 2 seed, host the Packers. Philly takes the 3 seed and is going to host the 6 seed San Francisco 49ers. Carolina grabs the 4 seed and they will host the 5-seeded LA Rams. In the AFC, Denver finishes as the 1 seed. They will get the bye week and home field advantage. New England gets the 2 seed. They're going to host the LA Chargers. So that's a big week for LA, for both of their cities' teams currently in the playoffs. The big surprise to me is the 3-seeded Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence he's playing great football right now. This is the best I've ever seen Trevor look. This is the best I've ever seen the Jacksonville Jaguars look. They're playing great football right now. It's fun football to watch. I've never seen that team, play football in that manner. But it's great right now. But they're going to be hosting Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills this weekend in the wild card. Really, really looking forward to that game. Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers take the crazy W. They take the division, and they're going to take the 4 seed, and they will host the red-hot Houston Texans. CJ Stroud is playing absolutely lights-out football right now. This defense is playing championship football right now. Everything right. I think if CJ Stroud probably plays B-level football, you will probably be seeing the Houston Texans in their first Super Bowl appearance this year, barring, some crazy, kick goes wide right, with 2 seconds left, to go to the Super Bowl, or, a failed onside kick or something like that in Seattle type of thing whenever the Super Bowl is all but in your hand. Every game is potentially Aaron Rodgers' final career game. So I think if you were ever a fan of his, or you're just a fan of, watching, a legend's last game, live, and you can say you were there to see it. I think every game that he suits up for is potentially his last career game, and every drive could be his last drive. It almost was in New York. But if Green Bay makes it past the Chicago Bears again, they will travel to Seattle to take on the NFC leading Seattle Seahawks in the divisional round. Other than that, that's going to do it for me today. I'll be back here throughout the week as we continue to look ahead to this Wildcard Weekend matchup. Thank you for all the views, for all the likes, for all the comments, the et cetera, and just everybody liking, sharing, commenting, posting, just viewing, just watching the video, just streaming it for a little while. It really does mean a ton. We hit our first, 100 plus video, and now, the last time I checked, it was over 150. I don't know where it is now. I hadn't checked it in several days, but just everybody, thank you so much, for tuning in here, for enjoying this show. It's brand new. We still have a couple of kinks to work out. I've still got a couple of kinks to work out. It's been a long time since I've been, behind a microphone, in front of a camera, and talking since, my time in the U.S. Navy, as a mass communication specialist. So, this has been a real fun journey, getting back and kind of, greasing my wheels, so to speak, and, and just having a really good time talking Packers football with you each and every week. So if you haven't already, I really do encourage you, please hit like on this video. If you haven't, please hit the subscribe button to the channel. It really does help us to find other Packers fans worldwide. That's going to do it for me, guys. Be safe, be well, and as always, go Pack Go.